It's a concerto for no less than 3 pianos, which Mozart wrote in 1776 for the sister and the nieces of his then employer. 2 of the pianos, as you'll hear, have plenty of notes to keep them busy. The 3rd piano part is less difficult, proving that Mozart could be something of a diplomat when writing to order. A performance of this concerto last year featured Hazel Hawke, the wife of the Prime Minister. Mrs. Hawke's been a keen amateur pianist for many years, and as you'll see, she does very well. The other 20 fingers belong to Duncan Gifford and Rebecca Chambers, who at 17 and 15 respectively are only slightly younger than Mozart was when he wrote the piece. Seated behind this traffic jam of pianos is the Sydney Symphony Orchestra and conductor John Hopkins. The Concerto for three pianos by Mozart, Hazel Hawke, Duncan Gifford and Rebecca Chambers with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra under John Hopkins from a concert recorded late last year. One of the curses on the talented who die young is that they quickly pass into legend and subtle inaccuracies begin to accrete around the facts of their lives. After 200 years, how wrong have we been about Mozart? Let's find out from British conductor Christopher Hogwood, who's here for performances with the Australian Opera and the Australian Chamber Orchestra. He's a leading authority on the life and work of Mozart. Christopher, welcome.
Thank you.
What are some of the fallacies about Mozart that have accumulated over the past couple of centuries?
Different fallacies accumulate according to which period you're in, because Mozart gets remade according to what each generation wants of him. He's probably suffered more, I reckon, from his biographers after his death than he ever suffered from penury or anything else before, because he was never bankrupt. You know, his wife was not a vicious, shrewish lady. His father was not an exploiter. His relationship with his employers was mostly quite good. He didn't die of poisoning. He wasn't on particularly bad terms with Salieri. Almost all the established post-Amadeus facts have been distorted to present a romantic myth.
Well, let's look at the most popular incarnation of Mozart in recent years, and that, of course, is the film Amadeus, which made a lot of the incongruity between the elegance, the refinement of his music, and this sort of lustful, almost wastrel type of character who wrote it. Was he really like that?
He wasn't a street kid. No, I mean, that's an image of Mozart that fits what's available in Hollywood rather than what's available historically. I mean, he was a courtier. He was brought up from birth as a courtier. He knew not to be rude about the Italians or about royalty. He knew where his employment was coming from. The sort of obscenities are something that have attracted people recently, simply on the strength of a few out of his 400 letters. And if they'd read a little bit further, they would have found that even his mother used the same sort of terminology in her letters. It was common Salzburg. The Salzburgers were known to be slightly vulgar in expression to show familiarity.
He always knew very much what he wanted, though, Mozart. Was he a victim of his own personality when it came to diplomatic dealings with entrepreneurs or people commissioning work from him?
He was quite sharp, I think, and he didn't want to be cheated. He didn't like incompetence, and he didn't like second-rate musicians who, as in all situations, can achieve positions they don't deserve. No, I think you could look at Mozart another way and say that he actually got exactly what he wanted almost all his life. He never had to make his own bed or run his own life. He spent his entire life writing music. He wrote an incredible amount of it. It didn't come that easily. A myth that Mozart just wrote and it was all in his head is gradually dispelled as people discover sketches and many fragments where he tries out things, gets them wrong and tries again. So it wasn't as effortless as people have tried to maintain, but it is the one thing he spent his life doing. And he died not impoverished. The sort of poverty they talk about meant disposing of one or two servants, not going without shoes.
In fact, he did rather well financially, didn't he? He earned quite a lot of money.
He earned as much as Salieri, and more, fees for operas. The mystery, one of the mysteries, other than the myths, for example, when he's just been paid a hearty salary, 8,000 guilders a year, when he's just been paid for writing Così fan tutti, a week later he has to write begging letters. So where have all those thousands of guilders gone?
Now, what about this death of his at the age of 35? Does anybody know really what caused it?
Kidney failure is the current guess, and interestingly, if he'd had a transplant, he would have survived for many more years. There's quite a lot of medical investigation, one thing and another. The only thing that does seem fairly sure is that he was not poisoned, and Salieri was nowhere in the picture, either of the poisoning or certainly not in the writing of the Requiem. But it was a sort of composite of dehydration, kidney failure, pneumonia, and so on, but not predictable death. He wasn't. Well, many people died worse deaths in those days, and he certainly didn't know it was coming, and he was not more susceptible to illness during his life than any other kid.
Christopher, thank you for setting us a little more right about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Thank you.